Good morning, planet Earth, and welcome to my book launch live stream party. I'm Adam David Collins, the author of Jewel of the Stars, and today we are going to be talking about the series and celebrating books. Let me just bring my microphone a little bit closer because I forgot to do that earlier. There we are. Yeah, so this is a book launch party, and as anyone would know, I love to party, and by party I mean read books. And today we're going to be talking about books. We've got 4 special guests coming. We have J.S. Earls, Ben Avery, H. Halverstadt, and Winston Crutchfield. And we'll be chatting to each of them about their various projects. And there'll be some giveaways happening through the morning or the afternoon, evening, depending on what part of the world you're in. So hello to Mazzy Adams, who has said hello in the chat, counting down with me. So I'm actually reading Mazzy's book at the moment. I just started last night. So that's pretty cool. So it's a bit of a supernatural spy thriller. It's a spy thriller set here in Australia. So very cool. So what is today about? Well, today coincides with the official release of Jewel of the Stars Book 3. But in a lot of ways, it's a launch for the entire series. I put out the first 2 books a number of years ago, and I haven't really done a big marketing push on them because, they say don't push too hard in it until you've got at least 3 books out. So this seems like a good time to try and get the word out about the series a bit more. So we've got a whole bunch of people here. So we've got Linda Roberts. Hi, Linda. And Ray is also here. Hi, Ray. Very cool to actually have some people watching. I did like a mini book launch for book 2 in late 2019, and unfortunately no one watched it. So I've learned a little bit more about how to promote things, and it's already going better than it was last time. So that's good. Yeah, so what is exactly Jewel of the Stars? Well, rather than just tell you, I thought I might show you a little trailer. For hundreds of years, vacationers have been cruising on grand ships for adventure and relaxation. First on the oceans of Earth. Today, cruise ships take you into the depths of space. Come and journey with us on Earth United Cruise Line's latest ship, Jewel of the Stars. Eat dinner by the light of a nebula, or dance the night away in orbit of an alien planet. With Jewel of the Stars, the universe is at your fingertips.
Our planet has fallen to an alien invasion. Do not approach Earth!
So that was the trailer for the series. So it's essentially a cruise ship in space on the run from an alien armada after Earth is occupied by an alien invasion force. The way I explained it in like more of a real world example is, imagine you were off on a cruise in the ocean, and while you were out there, your home country was invaded, and so the ship can't go home. So now you're stuck on sailing around international waters, just trying to make do and survive. So yeah, the ship is going through unexplored space. So the other thing, I have a bit of a tagline, which I say it's Star Trek meets Battlestar Galactica meets The Love Boat. So Star Trek because the tone, the technology level is kind of similar to a Star Trek: The Next Generation kind of thing. We have warp drive, we have teleporters, although you need a receiving station at the other end, unlike in Star Trek. We have artificial gravity, so those kind of things, and very much the idea of boldly going, of exploring unexplored space that humans have not seen before, meeting new alien races. That's all part of the series. Battlestar Galactica, because it's got that kind of a bit of a dystopian end of the world type feeling, because Earth has been conquered, and we just got a small ragtag kind of crew and passengers on this cruise ship who now have to fend for themselves out in the dangerous void of space. And the Love Boat, because it's on a cruise ship, and each book I do kind of focus in a bit on different passengers. So you got the crew, all your standard sci-fi tropes, like your captain, your first officer, your chief engineer, your doctor, all that stuff. But we've also got the cruise director, and we do kind of tell the stories of individual passengers each book. And these characters may kind of come back and recur. So they're kind of our semi-recurring characters. And that's kind of how we make that happen. So, so that's the basic idea of the plot of the story. Now, as for how it's structured, I've structured these books kind of like a modern TV series. So I'm dividing the story into seasons and episodes. So there are going to be 4 seasons overall, and each season has 6 episodes. Each episode is a novella of around 30,000 words. So it's still it's a decent read. Like, I've seen some series where they do this kind of episodic serialized thing, but each episode is barely a short story. With Duel of the Stars, you get, each episode is a book. It's a short book, but it is a book, and it has a satisfying story, but it continues to the overall ongoing plot arc of the season and the series as a whole. So, I've just got some guests that are going to come on soon. I'm just going to have a quick look at messages, make sure that they're all going okay. So we are going to be doing some giveaways today. I've actually already posted the first giveaway on the Facebook event page. Now, to find that page, if you're watching on YouTube, it will be in the description below, a link directly to that page. If you're watching on Facebook, then basically whichever page or profile you're watching this from will also have a link, whether it's my personal profile, my author page, the Nerd Heaven podcast page, or the Calling Show page. So there'll be a link in all of those that I posted this morning, so it'll be really easy to find. So the giveaways will be there. So it's all basically going to be, make a comment on a post. We'll randomly choose a post to receive the giveaway, and I'll keep them all open for about 24 hours. So you don't have to rush off and comment during the event necessarily. Alan Brocken, a fellow author, has just made a comment here. So this is a pretty cool premise. From the trailer, I got the feel for it. Like each book scenario, like Love Boat. So where should I buy from to get the best deal? Well, I have some very convenient links. So book 1, if you go to books2read.com/jewel, you will find a link there to pretty much every bookstore in existence. There's a whole bunch of different places you can buy the ebook. And there are also links to buy the print book in various places. Now, probably the cheapest way to get the print book I would say would be to go to Book Depository because they have free international shipping. I've actually found that I think it's even still cheaper for me to go there than to order author copies directly from Drafter Digital, who do my printing. Just simply because of the shipping. But if you're in America, you might find Amazon a cheaper option. You just have to have a look. Now, in terms of book 2, the link is just similar. It's bookstoread.com/jewel2. And then for book 3, it's jewel 3. Now, you won't find print links on the book 3 page yet. I don't think I'm able to add them until the book officially goes live, which will be happening today. Now, it may not be live right at this moment. I deliberately set the pre-order date the day before I wanted to release, just to make sure that it will be available, in American time zone. But I still got my dates mixed up. I set it for the 14th, ready for the 15th, when I should have set it for the 13th, ready for the 14th. So that link, the link works. You can pre-order right now, but you may not get the book until later today or tomorrow morning. It's just a bit of a mess up that I made. Yeah, for the best royalty. Yeah, I probably get the best royalty off the ebook rather than the print book. But ultimately, you guys should buy it in whatever way is most convenient to you. That's what matters most to me. All right, so we have a couple of guests. So our first guest is actually H. Halverstadt. So I'm just going to see if I can add her on. Press the button. There she is. Hello, Heather. And I've got a bit of clicking noise, and I'm not hearing your voice. Oh, the clicking's gone. Clicking is back. All right. This is the first time I've used Restream, so I'm not sure what to advise. If you go into the settings, you should see a cog somewhere on your screen, and there'll be an audio section there where you should be able to select your microphone device. Are people in the chat hearing that clicking sound? Yes, looks like you are hearing that. Okay. Right, if I turn your sound off, the clicking goes away. I turn the sound back on, the clicking comes back, but I don't hear anything that you're saying. Mark asks, is that the sound you get when the aliens take over? Very possibly. I'm just going to... Oh, the clicking is gone again. Try saying something. Right, no, I'm still not hearing your voice. All right, I'm just going... Okay, so I think Heather's going to try leaving and coming back again. So Heather will be back in a minute. Yeah, so she's going to be back in a second. There's always something interesting that happens when you're using new technology. Restream is really good because it allows me to stream to multiple sources, to YouTube and to about 3 or 4 different pages on Facebook. It also allows me to invite other people in without using any other software such as Zoom. But there's always quirks when you're doing complicated things. All right, so let's try adding that in. Right, we've still got the clicking, and I still can't hear your voice. Do you have an external headset that you could use? No, I'm not hearing anything through the microphone. Okay, the clicking's gone, so that's a good step. This is where, if I was an extrovert, I'd just keep talking about stuff, and it wouldn't be boring. But I'm not. But I've got Winston just on the line here. I might just, we're not going to do his spotlight yet, but I might just add him in just to say hello, just so it's not dead air. Is that okay, Winston? Nod if that's cool. Okay.
Hey, Adam.
Hello.
This will
All
be
right,
a good test. I can see my camera, but I have no idea if the audio works.
Yeah, I can hear you, so that's good.
Oh, good.
So, okay, so that is a useful test because it shows that I can add a guest and I can hear them.
And
So
that should have, I just turned off the air cleaner I have by my desk.
Mm-hmm.
So that should improve the sound quality on my end a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? While I'm here, how do I enter into the chat? I can't figure that out.
Yeah, so obviously we've got our private chat on Restream, but
I see the private chat. I don't see the public chat.
To do that, you would have to actually open up the stream on either YouTube or Facebook. But you'd probably want to turn the sound off on that stream because it's going to be a bit delayed and cause all sorts of weirdness.
Okay.
So we have a question here from Mazzy. She asks, is your cruise ship environment more earthy or sci-fi fantasy? So it's a bit of both. I mean, you know, it is a starship with a warp drive. But, you know, we do have artificial gravity. So it very much feels like a cruise ship. We've got the Lido deck. You can go swim in the swimming pool. There's shows. There's restaurants, all the kind of stuff. So the main difference is you look out the window, instead of seeing the ocean, you see stars. Now, on a normal cruise ship, the Lido deck's always right up on top. So it's open air, there's no roof. On Jewel of the Stars, the Lido deck is also at the top of the ship, and it has a glass roof or transparent roof. So you can sit in the pool, you can look up, and you can see the stars above you. So trying to replicate that traditional cruise ship kind of feel.
Well, I don't know if that's better or not. It's spookier.
Definitely darker.
All right. So, since Heather can't be here, I haven't read Heather's book. Have you?
I have, yes.
So tell me about it. So
it's a science fiction event. I don't want to take too much of her thunder away, but yeah, it's a science fiction adventure. It's got a protagonist who got a bit of a raw deal, very kind of unfairly and unjustly treated, which is something that he has to overcome. And he's kind of on a mission to clear his father's name, and that leads to all sorts of adventures. And yeah, so it's got some interesting world building. The planets have unique things that make them different to Earth, and there's a fairly minor thing in there, but something that I really like is a friendship between the main character and his friend. It's kind of the one person who has never judged him and has always accepted him despite the other stuff. So I really kind of like that aspect. He's not a major character throughout the book, but yeah, I really connected with that aspect in particular.
So are we talking adventure fiction. A lot of modern sci-fi lends towards either the Old West. It either leans towards the Old West or to a military sci-fi kind of thing. What about Gemini?
I wouldn't call it a military sci-fi, but there certainly is action. There's fight scenes, lasers, all that kind of stuff. I suppose it might lean slightly more towards the Western kind of thing, in that it is, space is often seen as a frontier with, different planets being kind of frontier towns. But certainly not in the way that something like Firefly or The Mandalorian really leans into the Western kind of thing.
Mazzy's paranoid about cruise ships. Well, the key there is to stay away from the ones that are upside down. You can't go wrong that way.
Yes, definitely. You don't want to be on the Poseidon. Yeah, no, she actually mentions the Poseidon Adventure. Perhaps a space cruise from the Covenant of my safe Earthbound share might actually work for me. That's we live vicariously through fiction, and this is the way you can have a bit of a cruise experience. Now, Linda Roberts asks, is there any romance? Yeah, there will be romance at various times throughout the story.
We're back about Gemini's Key, right?
Oh,
are we talking about Jewel of the Stars?
Well, I'll answer for Jewel of the Stars first. Yeah, so, I mean, the second book actually focuses on a honeymooning couple who are on the cruise for their honeymoon. That honeymoon, of course, has been cut short by alien invasion, so it's not quite what they signed up for. And that leads to some stresses, as you can imagine. Long term, there's something that I'm wanting to build up that's a little bit inspired by an old British sitcom from the 90s. I say old, that makes me old. It's my son would definitely say it's old, which kind of amuses me.
No. We were watching those when it was new, Adam. Come on. Yes. It's okay.
But yeah, it's a show called As Time Goes By, which kind of features a bit of a romance between kind of upper middle-aged people who had kind of known each other when they were young and lost contact and are reconnecting. So I've taken a little bit of inspiration from that. So there's that kind of a so many books have romances between young people, but you don't often see that between older characters. And so that was something that I'm exploring kind of throughout the story as a longer term thing.
All right. When you think about it, you spend so much more of your life as a mature individual than you do as a young person. It's an underserved demographic.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you're going there.
Yeah.
Is this the main character, or are these side characters that are romancing?
Yeah, I might not reveal too much, but yeah, at least one of them is a primary character. So I'll let you guess a little bit about that. Yeah, in terms of instance, I guess I guess the primary ones of these books is people in their middle ages, people who enjoyed like Star Trek: The Next Generation back in the day when it was on, but it is open to all ages. Like I think young people will hopefully enjoy it as well. Hello, Phil. Good to see you here in spirit. So I'm going to try adding Heather back in. So let's see what happens.
Oh,
hi, goodness. Can you hear me now?
I can. Wow, that's much better.
Yay!
Awesome.
Sorry about that. It worked great on the Zoom test, but
Yes.
Tell you what, I'm going to duck out and see if I can't figure out how to get it so where I can join the chat too.
Yep.
And
why don't
I'm going to listen so I can hear about Gemini's Key and all this other good stuff. Okay. I'll be back.
All right. I'll turn you off. All right. So, hello and welcome. It's good to be able to hear your voice finally.
Congratulations on your new book, Adam.
Thank you. It's certainly been a long time coming. I'm going to have to get better at putting them out more regularly. But I actually do have a goal to get the third one out before the end of this year. Sorry, the fourth one. Did I say third?
Well,
Um,
now you better do it because you got me hooked.
yes, awesome.
I'm gonna be like, when's the next one coming out, Adam?
Yeah. Well, that is the answer. Hopefully, it will be in 2023.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm looking
So
forward to that.
Mazzy says, sounds like the perfect romance scenario for the cruise ship demographic, which covers such a broad age span. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to read a bit of a bio to introduce you. So, once tasked with mapping our world, H. Halverstadt now forges her own with the help of her engineer husband. She has a degree in geographic information systems, but her favorite way to use it is for writing clean, far future multi world science fiction filled with adventure, mystery, and intrigue. Her first flash fiction story, Toby's Call, was published in Havoc magazine, and her website was featured in the Christian Science Fiction and Fantasy Bulletin. Gemini's Key is her first novel. You can follow her at her author website and book review page, hhalverstadtbooks.com. You can get her first story, Toby's Call, for free when you subscribe to her newsletter, and her novelette, Tumult's Edge, will be sent out for free to her newsletter subscribers when it releases later this year. And we've actually worked together because obviously you are my official US correspondent for the Realm Makers Conference when I was doing my monthly Christian Science Fiction and Fantasy Bulletin. Although this is the first time we've actually spoken face to face, I believe.
Yeah, well,
We've yes, we've certainly seen and heard each other on videos.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Christian Science Fiction and Fantasy Bulletin. I'm kind of sad that you don't have it. I'm hoping you'll do more episodes.
Yeah, it's a real hard balancing act as a creative person, isn't it? With all the different things you're doing. The struggle I find is I do so much of the extra stuff that's meant to promote the books that I never actually write the books. So that's a balance I'm still trying to figure out.
Me too.
And I'm going to keep working on that this year. But yeah, that was good. It was a real kind of a passion to get the word out and to share other authors who are Christians writing science fiction and fantasy, and just put a spotlight on some other people. And I know that's a bit of a passion that you've shared with some of what you're doing as well, which is really cool. But yeah, there's a notification on someone's computer there. But first of all, why don't you tell us about some of your favorite sci-fi and fantasy fandoms?
Movies or books?
Sorry?
Movies or books? All of them? All of them? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm my interests are a lot of them tend to go to the classic side of sci-fi. So Star Trek, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, that sort of thing. Not so much the new stuff. So, and I'm I'm a fan of the Star Wars original series. I read a ton of the what's now called the Legacy series.
Mm-hmm.
I love the movie The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I didn't read the book as much. As far as books, I really love the Lois McMaster-Bujold Verkosigan saga. Have you ever read those?
No, I haven't come across those ones yet.
Great stuff. And several different series of Anne McCaffrey. I'm not sure that that there is a McCaffrey book that I didn't like. Yeah, I can't think of one.
Yeah,
and,
I actually found a bunch of hers at a secondhand bookshop just a couple of weeks ago, because I've been wanting to check out her Dragon Riders of Pern world, but I couldn't find the first one there. But that is something that's certainly on my list to check out.
Yeah, I actually got a whole haul of them from a secondhand bookstore. So
cool.
It was great because a lot of them I had on Kindle, but I found myself leaning more and more towards paper and having paper books and stuff like that. Because you're in front of a screen so much writing, it's nice to have something on paper to look at. It's not so hard on your eyes.
Yeah.
Alan Dean Foster, have you ever read his Pip and Flink series?
No, I may have read. He may have written a Star Trek book or two. I may have read something by his, but no, I haven't.
Yeah. He's written some of the Star Trek books,
Mm.
but I also really love his series. It's about a young guy and his telepathic snake that
All right.
kind of furry snake that um, is his kind of familiar, but it's sci-fi. It's not
Mm.
fantasy.
Yep.
And let's see. Oh, there's a time, but anyway. Um, so a lot of my interests tend to be classic sci-fi and stuff with believable science fiction, but character driven. I'm not really into like Asimov or anything like that.
Mm. Yeah, certainly a lot of things I can connect with there. Yeah, I think the '90s was really the golden age of Star Trek, wasn't it? As so I'm
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
celebrating right here.
yeah.
Um, and I really like the BBC version of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, um,
I haven't
which
seen
is
that.
yeah, it's certainly not a great example of special effects by any means, but it was just completely absurd and very amusing.
The
So I
story
probably
is
yeah, and I have read the first book. I haven't read any of the others. I do like how he called it a trilogy in 4 parts, and then I think he had like a fifth and a sixth after that. So
the answer is 42.
exactly, there's always 42. So tell us about Gemini's Key. I know Winston was
So,
very keen to hear about it.
well, I love that you've already read it.
Yep.
But for those of you who haven't, Gemini's Key is the story of a young man who has just graduated from college, and he's
Sorry, I didn't mean to cover your face with that.
he's just graduated from college, and he would love to um, uh, get an internship and future career with the Wormhole Guild because he's a physicist. But unfortunately, everybody in the galaxy thinks that he's a traitor because apparently his dead father is a traitor. He doesn't agree with that assessment. Um, but if somebody's dead, there wasn't really a trial, but if they're already famous and they must have done something wrong, so smoke, where there's smoke, there's fire, and all that kind of stuff. So he's got media following him around and that sort of thing. And in the midst of this, he has to somehow prove his father innocent because the media would love to follow him to where his job as an asteroids bot supervisor or whatever it is that he's going to get if he can't figure out what his father did and clear both his father's name and his own. So he tries to find a way to qualify for this Wormhole Guild internship. He enters a contest, and it's a contest that takes him to a terraformed world with his only friend. And that doesn't really work out for him. So he'll have to find another way. And that other way involves robots and cyborgs and terraforming and weird creatures and mystery and intrigue and a lot of really fun stuff.
Mm. Yeah, I really enjoyed the world building that you do in the series, and just little things like the way people breathe on the planet where it first starts. Just those kind of things I thought were nice kind of sci-fi touches. And I was saying to Winston also that I really liked his friendship at the beginning of the book. I forget his friend's name, but before he basically
Siobhan,
launches, yeah,
Siobhan.
before he launches out on that adventure, it's kind of like he's the one person who actually believes in him, and yeah, I really like that kind of friendship and seeing that kind of portrayed in fiction. So that was really cool. Yeah, okay, so now you've got something interesting behind you on the wall there.
Oh yeah,
Can you tell us what that is?
this is my star map.
Mm-hmm.
And here in the middle, you can see Sol. That's our sun. and these are all these different stars, and we've got different gate. We've got a gate key here. This is a primary gate, a secondary gate, a tertiary gate, a gate under construction, and a planned gate. So you can see all the different gates, and this is the system that our story takes place in. So this is Zyadas, Danube, which is the homeworld of our hero, Ajani, Zinmir, and Catalyst, which is actually an asteroid. It's the asteroid home of the Wormhole Guild. And so all these different systems have planets. And book 2, which is still under wraps, but I can give you hints if you're interested, takes place on a different system. I won't tell you which one. But this poster is actually being given away today as a prize. It's normally only available when I go to like physical events. So if any of you will be at the Realm Makers Consortium, hit me up because I'll have some of the cards. But I'll be giving away one copy as a prize.
So that's like a special exclusive that you normally can't do anywhere other than in person. So that's really cool. So yes, I'll be pasting the link to that giveaway on the event page. In fact, I'm going to do that right now while we're talking. Now, you're also doing another one, which I've already posted, which is a giveaway for the book itself. So if you like what you're hearing, be sure to go on and make a comment on the post. As I said earlier, those giveaways are going to be lasting for about 24 hours. So there'll be plenty of time to go and make a comment, and then it'll just be a random selection. So Mazzy says, Sins of the Fathers is a great trope with so many spiritual and emotional aspects for characters to deal with and writers to explore. And yeah, I totally agree. And I think in Gemini's Key you've done that in a very interesting way with them.
Yeah, I think one of the things I try to do is I try to not do a lot of black and white. Most of it is shades of gray.
Yeah.
And because I think most things in our world are shades of gray. Every villain thinks they're a hero. And every person that you think is, good, they may be good, but they're not necessarily all good. It's always, I like to say that, that no church is ever going to be perfect because I'm in it. So,
yeah.
So everybody has their sins, and it's eventually going to come out. And so I think we all have ideas about it. It's so tempting to want to paint the world in black and white, but that's not really the way the world works.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate that, because I do like some of those shades of grey in characters, both the good characters and the bad characters. My favorite villains are the ones that really passionately believe that they are the hero of their story, and they're doing something for a reason that they believe in.
That's one of the reasons I like one of my favorite Star Wars novels. It's called Traitor. And the villains in that series are the Yuuzhan Vong. And they really their whole idea is that everything that's natural is good, everything that's like grown or plants and that sort of thing, and everything that is man-made is bad and must be destroyed. And they really see themselves as the benefactors, and it's kind of like Thanos. And Thanos is like, well, why isn't anybody grateful? What's wrong with you guys?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really cool. I also want to say a quick hello to my mum, who's in the chat, who's always been my biggest supporter and biggest encourager, which is really awesome. All right, so you've got a flash fiction that you had posted in the Havoc magazine, Toby's Call. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Toby's Call is it's in the same world as Gemini's Key, but it takes place several hundred years before. Not 200 years before, I think. I'll have to look at the timeline. Anyway, it's a flash fiction, which is about 1,000 words or less. I think it's almost exactly 1,000 words. I had to work really hard to cut it down enough. I tend to write long, but It's about the early days of Danube, which is Gemini's Keys. Uh, our hero is from Danube, but there's no scenes on Danube in Gemini's Key. So in Toby's Call, we actually have something on Danube in the early days of its settling. And the problem is that they have a squid or a bunch of squids actually, that have decided that humans taste good. And so our hero is a guy who is unemployed and is, he's young, unemployed and trying to get a job, but having a hard time. And it involves talking dolphins and, a bunch of cool subplots. And like everything I write, it has a little thread of mystery. So,
cool.
But I can't tell you that much about it because, flash fiction.
Yeah.
Doesn't have that much in the story. So, but it is free. So sign up for my newsletter and you can get it for free. So if you go to my website, there's a pop-up and it'll say sign up here and get Toby's Call for free. And if you sign up for the newsletter, you will also get Tumult's Edge for free when it comes out later this year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's good. And that I believe is also set in the same universe as Gemini's Key.
Yes.
Yep. It's got a very cool kind of cover with a spaceship, which has me intrigued. All you need to get my attention is just have a nice looking spaceship, and I'm hooked.
Well, it also has space pirates. So
yeah,
that's cool. Right.
Yes.
So, but Adam, I did have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have against cinnamon?
So. Yeah, so in my Jewel of the Stars world, basically when so my primary aliens are telepathic, and when they are connecting to your mind, either trying to read your mind or trying to put something into your mind, the way the human brain interprets that is that they smell a smell that kind of smells like cinnamon. Now it's not actually coming from particulates in the nose. It's just a mental. It's how the brain is interpreting something that it doesn't know. How else to interpret basically. So, yeah, I just thought that was an interesting thing, and it kind of gives the characters a bit of a hint there as to when there might be one of those aliens about. Which they need a few advantages because these things are physically quite tough. I originally was just going to have it because I don't often explore other senses in my writing because I don't have much of a sense of smell myself, so I don't usually think about smells. But I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if these aliens had a distinctive smell? And then I thought, hang on, the guy who's encountering these things in a spacesuit, he's not going to be able to smell that. And that's when I kind of came onto this idea of the telepathic connection and how the brain interprets it. So that's kind of where that came from.
But why cinnamon? Like, did you have a bad experience with cinnamon, or did someone sit there and lob cinnamon rolls at you?
No, I kind of wish that was the case because that'd be an awesome story. But no, I just randomly picked something, and that's what I happened to come up with. So
I was hoping there was some awesome story behind that.
Yeah.
Maybe your nana made you eat cinnamon rolls into you.
Yeah, I kind of wish there was now because that'd be fun. Mazzy says, so no serving cinnamon buns for morning tea on the cruise ship. No, probably not after this. Although, their supplies are kind of dwindling, so you're not going to be getting the kind of meals you usually get on a cruise ship as time goes on.
I think it would be awesome if there was a scene like that where they were serving cinnamon buns.
Yeah.
And the and that was all there was for breakfast, and then suddenly Braxton just starts barfing or wanting to barf.
Now that would be very cool. I may have to try and squeeze that into book 4. Much later, and it's not going to work because they're not going to have much of the original food stores left. But I can probably make it work in book 4. So yeah, I'll have to think about that. So it's almost time to bring our next guest in to join us, but I wanted to ask you about your website, Halverstadt Books.
Well, H. Halverstadt Books, I started it as a review page, and part of it was just kind of like a, a time saver for me. Because the thing is, when you're a science fiction and fantasy writer, especially when you're a Christian science fiction and fantasy writer, people are always coming up to you, hey, do you have any book recommendations? And you spend like, well, you know how long a long text takes. It's 2 hours sometimes to type, type all the stuff in, and then you're like, I just can't keep doing this. And so, now, and I started realizing this is something that's needed. There's so many people that are looking to connect with authors, and there's not a lot of review pages that, specifically because, my audience tends to, it's kind of like action adventure, my page kind of skews to the action adventure side of it. So it kind of, there's a lot of guys on there, and I'm a boy mom, and I know how hard it is to find books for boys. So and there's a lot more review sites that specialize in girls, but finding books for boys sometimes can be a little bit more challenging. So, I'm really happy that we have a lot of books on my site that are, that are really enjoyed by women, but also by boys and men.
Yeah.
So, and anyway, so but we have several different volunteers. There's 4 or 5 of us that, sometimes some people write a lot of reviews, some people write a few. We've got one that comes in and out sometimes. We got 2 of them that kind of do that. So, but none of us make any money from the site. It's just a public service. It's something that is needed. So, we hope you like it.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's really good. Speaking of stories for boys, it might be interesting to hear what Winston says later in the day, because the series that he's publishing was kind of born out of the kind of adventure fiction for boys of the 1960s. But it's kind of grown into something much bigger than that. But that's kind of where the roots of the inspiration for the authors who wrote that. So, yeah.
Yeah, mine has been referred to as like classic sci-fi also.
Yeah.
A more modern twist on classic sci-fi.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
I know you kind of, the image kind of
yes.
We're particularly proud of this this little play right here.
Yeah, that's very cool.
It's fun to write.
It's just when you've spent so much time working on a book and then you see like the cover that someone else has created out of your ideas, it's an amazing kind of feeling, isn't it?
It sure is. It really is. And that was created by Kirk DuPont.
So he's one of the legends of the industry.
Yes, one of the legends of industry, and I am a huge fan of Kirk DuPont.
Me too.
I was so excited when he agreed to do my cover. So he's going to do the cover for number 2 also.
Yep, awesome.
So excited about that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being a part of this and coming in and talking about Gemini's Key. All right, so we're going to bring our next guest on, J.S. Earls. You're welcome to stick around or head off whenever you want. But I'm going to try pushing the button now. And there he is.
Hey. Hey.
Hello and welcome.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, good.
So I'm just experimenting with my different camera options here. Can I?
Oh, wow.
Can I highlight?
Can I take my guests off the screen?
There's probably
That's cool, though.
There's probably a way I can actually choose who I want to highlight.
Probably.
But I can't. Oh, there we go. We can do that. That's cool.
Man, that is really big.
Yep. All right. So I'm just going to read a little bio. So J.S. Earls is a multimedia author whose diverse credits include several online projects for the National Geographic Channel, graphic novel adaptations of Ted Decker's popular Circle and Lost Book series, ghostwriting on the legendary Steve Roper and Mike Nomad newspaper strip, editing several volumes of Tokyo Pop's Manga Bible, creating the Realm Unseen interactive audiobook and the critically acclaimed Pistol Fist. So,
Hey.
lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Sure,
Was it jack of all, master of none?
well, it sounds like you've got a bit of credit for being a bit of a master on some of that stuff.
I mean, yeah, I'm actually, and I know you're going to talk. I know this was one of the things you wanted to talk about, but since I have done more adaptations than a few people as far as adapting from a book to a comic, I am planning on writing a book about that for people
Right.
that want to do those things, especially because there's so many great public domain properties out there that people can adapt and do their own thing with, and especially like a lot of the classics, you can kind of focus on different areas. If you don't want to just pervert the whole thing, like some of the adaptations want to do, but there's a and I brought this up. Some of your viewers on here might be familiar with this, but there's an interesting thing that I've kind of wanted to dig into with the book Dracula, because one of the things that stops him or can stop his power in it are the communion elements. And
Wow.
I found that like really fascinating. And I was like, that would be an interesting, to get into some of that and say, okay, why? Why is it the communion element, especially from a Christian perspective? It would be very interesting to get into that. But I remember just when I was reading that, because I was working on something that was dealing with that was going to be based on Dracula. I was trying to come up with a different spin that wasn't going to be so I don't know, but it would be faithful. Everybody's tried to do it in such very different ways, and it's interesting, and a lot of people I know this. When you actually go back and read some of these classics, you're like, man, this is nothing like any of the adaptations that I've seen, and in some ways, like they're really good as is. Almost, you just kind of need to shorten up some of the language or certain things where they kind of drone on because it's a novel or whatever. And if you're turning it into a comic, that's the biggest thing. You have to do math when you're doing the adaptations, because it's the same thing with movies and things. And that was one thing I actually focused on learning a lot of, and listening to a lot of people who have done very good adaptations of things. And you have to kind of streamline everything, kind of keep it focused, and decide you're not going to go off on all these little side things. There's a lot of writers that will do that, and they'll put like this scene here to kind of show what this monster is doing over here, and then this scene over here. And it's like, when you're doing adaptations, you got to kind of focus more on the characters. If it has to be that short, if you're turning a 400-page book into a 130-page comic or graphic novel or whatever, there's things like that, and you have to kind of like look at those things and decide like, well, how many, like, what's the translation ratio? Does one comic page equal 3 novel pages or 4 novel pages? And there's stuff like that helps when you actually do it. And like when we've seen good adaptations of films, of novels, it's when they do things like that and they really focus and the whole thing is balanced so that it flows right, and they don't get, I don't know, they don't get obsessive about certain scenes or whatever. Like, you have to kind of have the end goal in mind and know how many pages, how many minutes or whatever you're dealing with. But yeah, but I am going to be doing a thing on that. I've kind of given a couple talks online about it, and done some interviews about that. But that is something I need to do, just because so many people, when they do it, they make a lot of mistakes. And it causes them a lot of problems, and everybody tries to, they try to start from the beginning. They're like, I want to be faithful to the book and everything and stuff like that. And it's like, it's just impossible. Like, if you're not doing a 400-page comic, you can't translate and be fair to a 400-page novel. You have to pick and choose. But you can focus on the things, and more often than not, it's like stay with the main characters, because there's so many characters in novels and so many things where things branch off a lot. And the way to really stay true to the story is stay true to the characters. And also, like, if you, and a lot of people don't really read the book before they start, and you really need to like read it. I suggest like reading it and like listening to it, so you really understand like what are the themes of the book, what are the different things of the characters, like what are their major moments and things, so you can focus on the important things to the story and get those things right.
Wow.
And a lot of people starting out, they just they want to be faithful, so they just start and they keep trying to do page for page, and it's like, dude, I mean, it's great for me because I've been called in to fix like 3 different things like that.
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, this is not working, we need you to come in. And I'm like, okay, like I kind of told you guys this to begin with, like you can't do it the way you were thinking. I was like, but it's but I don't know. I do enjoy those things, I guess, too, because as a fan of a lot of different styles and things, like I like to see, and a fan of a lot of writers, and fans of a lot of fan opinions and how passionate and everything everybody is. And it's like, so like for me, it's like a respect thing for the audience and for the author, that to do as true and as good a job like for both of them as possible. And because that's because ultimately that's what's going to sell better, because that's what people are looking for, but it's also I don't know, to me it's more of a just a respect thing all around. You want to be I don't know, especially as a Christian, when you get those opportunities and when you get to do things like that, like I've gotten to work on like the National Geographic and the Ted Decker and other stuff. It's like it's kind of on you to represent Christ in the right way. And I'm a big proponent of being a servant, and not so much in that you only serve other people necessarily, but just have that mentality and that focus, like as you do things that I don't know. I don't think enough. I think we get so much, and there's so much pressure. And I know a lot of Christian writers focus on, like, get hung up on, I don't want my name big on the, it always feels weird for a lot of Christian writers to have your name big on the book and different things. And there's so many things like that, which is true. It does kind of, you're like, okay, well, how much is okay to promote myself and different things like that. But I mean, I just think motivation is a lot of things. It's like it's always good to check where your motivation is and what you're doing and why you're doing it. And sometimes you just have to do certain things and you might have to put your name bigger because it's going to be the way that it's going to be presented to audiences or people trying to find it is going to be mostly like really small, like little pictures, like a lot of podcasts and things like that. So you have to put names and words big. There's just sometimes there's stuff like that, and it's not so much ego. It's just being practical. But I will shut up now because I like to ramble and then go one thought to the next thought and everything. But I'll shut up and let you ask, because I got to tell you, I love your Star Wars villain accent that you have, like how they're all kind of all the villains are British, and it's just, I think I'm actually about 50% English, so
right.
but I don't sound like a villain though, because I don't have the accent, so I'm like the hero. You strangled me now.
There's something about British villains, isn't there, that is just cool.
They're sly.
I really like what you were saying about staying true to the theme. I remember hearing it was Brandon Sanderson talking once about good adaptations, and he said one of the things that really makes a good adaptation is staying true to the theme of the original work. And I guess a bad one was when you actually swap that and are actively I guess speaking an opposite theme, And I think the example they gave of that was the I Am Legend movie,
Yeah.
which kind of almost, I think he said, had the opposite message of what the original work had.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
that's always problematic. That was I was actually, and some people may have actually seen this on Facebook. I was actually having a discussion with a couple of people today on there about how like Dean Koontz, who is a Catholic, has been insanely frustrated with working with Hollywood. Because they don't understand, and I would say it's a worldview thing where they don't share the same worldview, that there is, absolute good and absolute evil. So like they only want to live in the gray. And there are certain things that they have done, and really wrecking the movie versions of his books, where he has specifically had like a very pure and good character against a very wicked and evil character. And but in Hollywood mentality, they need to make the evil character more likable and more human, and they had to take the pure girl and make her very sleazy and a drug addict and stuff. And it's like, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, there's a time and place for like stories like that and humanizing different things and just being honest. He's like, but that's not this story. Like you guys totally missed the theme, and it's kind of like that with I Am Legend. Like I would say that a lot of the theme of that is that they don't necessarily share it, so they want to change the theme and put it in a different way. And I mean, stuff like that, I just think is really disrespectful to the original authors, because you're taking something that they did and then you're and I understand, and the authors are willing to do it because they need money to live and pay their bills and feed their families and and everything else. But yeah, but it's really, I think it's really disappointing when they do that. I think a lot of them too, like they just don't even, because they're immature and people don't really understand. They don't think about it as much as they should, especially with some of the companies and some of the groups that get the rights to some of the things. Like they barely even think about books as having themes. They just think it's this scene, it's this scene, it's that scene, it's these characters. They just put everything in boxes, and they don't. And I would say you can see this throughout like 90% of the movies coming out of Hollywood for the last like 20 years, is that most of those movies don't even have themes. Like coming out of them, like underline that they can kind of pull back to, and that's why on a lot of different levels, like they don't work, or people are only semi-satisfied with the end result, and the endings are end up being rushed, and they're not really satisfying and stuff, because they weren't thinking of the themes and the resolution and all that stuff. They were thinking about it from a practical standpoint, but not from like a thematic standpoint. Like we're saying this, and sometimes it's just it can be just keeping it simple. Like you don't have to say anything like real deep. Like one of my more successful things has been my Pistol Fist comic, and because it deals with the bad British, no, because it does deal with a sect of small British soldiers that are kind of obsessed with experimenting and doing weird kind of stuff like that. But one of the things with that I pretty much kept saying it to everybody that was involved with it. I was like, the theme is freedom. I was like, it's not about Republican, Democrat. Like it's not about any of this. It's like the theme is freedom, because the main character is a runaway slave. And that was one of the reasons why I chose him to be that, is because he's gonna relate most to freedom and stuff like that.
Totally.
And there are some interesting historical things that kind of connect to things, but yeah, I just, theme is a big thing. And whether you're a big writer or small writer, I mean, there's always somebody bigger, there's always somebody smaller. So
yeah, and that Pistol Fist that you talked about has been named one of the all-time top 10 black comic heroes. So I would not be surprised if one of the reasons for that is because you approached it from a thematic point of view.
Yeah, because it wasn't, and that's I will say that's one of the things that has really resonated, and we did like I was very happy. We did have like some different like black um, like artists and people that were involved, but we had. I actually made sure it was an international cast because I didn't want it to be this rah America thing. So there was only really like 2 Americans that were involved with it when we were doing it. One guy was up in North Pole, Alaska, and that's not even connected. So I don't necessarily include him as an American, but but we had like from all over the world. We had different people involved, and I like that because they all had different perspectives on America and American history, and so yeah, just keeping it focused like that is amazing because we had and again, this is one of the things if you want to. And this is a great lesson for a lot of the comic companies and a lot of the things out there is if you keep it simple like that on like a theme like that and you're focused on that and you're not focused on some political message or something, you're going to appeal to so many more people because constantly and I would say in some Christian literature too, but in the mainstream for sure, they tend to focus on one side and kind of anger the other side with their message, and they lose half their audience. And it's like everybody just has such a thing with like the message, and they kind of make it a little more complicated than they should. If they keep it simple, it's going to appeal to a lot of people because a lot of people can relate to freedom and independence. That's the thing. Like we had fans who are like far right and far left. I mean, so much to the point where like these far left fans are painting pictures and doing drawings and all kinds of stuff where they're like, and even digging into history stuff to kind of go with like the theme of their drawing and stuff. And even with that, like they're staying true to like freedom and things like that and not necessarily pushing one narrative or the other. And it's like it drives me crazy because especially because it's so many of our characters and all the different media now are they're kind of caricatures of the way that like if it's liberal people making it, the conservative people are caricatures. And it's like great example that really ticked me off was in the Captain America comics when they changed and I like Falcon and stuff, but when they changed and made him Captain America, they went way left with their stories. They had in the story, this is like right when they made the change and started doing this stuff. He punched a guy that was against gay marriage on a plane because he was against gay marriage. And so, oh yeah, I'm like, yeah, this is the message we want, Captain America to be because, someone doesn't agree, I mean, it would have been even more powerful to just have him like give him a weird look and sit down and just like ignore the guy. Like you're an idiot, it's like, no, it has to be violent. Like he has to punch this guy on a plane. And then in that same story, they had border agents. And obviously, the border agents are evil. I mean, and when I say evil, they were devil worshippers.
Right. Like literally.
Like literally.
Yeah, okay.
And
wow.
yeah, and there's a lot of stuff like that happened that really turned off a lot of conservatives to like Marvel, and DC started doing it too. And it's just like, it's you just can't have different people with different worldviews in any of our media these days, and it's sad. But
yeah, I actually try to take inspiration from J. Michael Straczynski, the creator of Babylon 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's an outspoken
atheist.
But the way he portrays Christians in his in that show is really impressive. And
oh yeah,
so I am a Christian. I'm writing Duel of the Stars, not specifically for a Christian audience, but for a general audience. But
right.
I try to kind of take inspiration from JMS, from the other side. There's always going to be, a character that is kind of that you imbue some of your own worldview into. But I try to be balanced in the way that I would deal with atheist characters or agnostic characters and treat them well with the kind of respect that JMS has treated us, because not many stories do that well, I think.
Yeah, well, and especially and I'll in a lot of Christian sci-fi and fantasy, that's kind of been true too,
Yeah,
to an extent.
we've done it
I mean, we're
badly.
just as guilty as
Yeah,
as
totally.
they are, but it's like that's where, like I was saying, that's where the good professional writing is when you can write from somebody else's point of view and not basically slander them. If you just say this is what they believe and this is why they act the way that they act, and don't show it as evil or wrong, you're still going to have your argument like in your thing and what you're showing by your characters and everything like that. But it's like, you don't, like, we have to have characters with different worldviews and things because that's reality. But
yeah, all right. I want to mention The Healing of Harms, which is your most recent book that you've published. Now we're going to be doing a little giveaway for this, which I'll post into the event in a minute. But yeah, tell us a little bit about The Healing of Harms.
That actually, it was interesting. That actually came to me as a kind of like a TV series, like a 3-season TV series. Like I kind of saw like kind of the progression and the way things are. I've been so busy, I haven't gotten back to some of the stuff. But also, one of the reasons for that was I was actually in development for it to at least be pitched as a TV show. And so a lot of things were being changed and worked. And I was trying to, like a lot of times, I'm sure you guys have felt this when you write something and then, after it's been printed or whatever, you're like, oh, I should have totally made this character that, or what, like whatever. And I'm like, it's like it needed to be a little more focused or whatever, especially when different things like that. And but basically the idea was, some of it centers around the Hippocratic Oath that doctors take. And the really funny thing is, this was actually probably 2 or 3 years before COVID that I had this idea. But basically it's about a doctor. It's very Twilight Zone-y. Some people, more modern people, have compared it to Black Mirror, but yeah, it's very Black Mirror, Twilight Zone-y kind of story, because it's about a doctor. He has these situations going. He's really he's talented, but he's very down and depressed because of like he's lost a lot of lives and different things, personally and professionally, like on the operating table and so he's like, I mean, I would say almost kind of like borderline suicidal and kind of drinking a lot and everything. And but then he gets this weird opportunity and this weird stuff that starts happening. I won't spoil a lot of it, but basically what he finds out is that that there are the diseases that there are diseases that have taken on human form, and there's like one guy who represents cancer and another one who represents something else and another one who represents something else. And then he's told through these messages and things that he's seeing on the walls and all these different things, that if he kills the guy who is cancer, then everybody on the planet that has cancer will be healed. And that does happen in the story. And the thing that really pushes him over the edge is when he sees the guy that is cancer brush the hair of this little girl, and he sees the cancer cells like flow into her, and he's just like, oh, no, like that's no. It's like I'm gonna, because he keeps fighting against, I'm trying to save people. I'm not trying to kill people, Right. So that's the big, that's one of the big twists of it. And then, the whole thing happens, and it starts heading that way, and it gets more crazy. And it's very Twilight Zone-y with the story. It's extremely that way. And there are some like massive things that happens. There's a huge reveal at the end, which I'm kind of thinking about rewriting and saving for the end of the trilogy, because it kind of says like this is what it doesn't super detailed wise, but it kind of spoils the kind of like what's going on and where they and different things like that, and that I'm like, well, if this was a series, I should probably save that big reveal for the end or in the middle or something like that. But yeah, but I know a lot of people have really liked it. And it's one of those things where I just tried to stay as true as I could to the way that it the way that the story kind of came to me. But it's it's a lot of big. I would say it points to other big issues that we as Christians deal with. When it comes to war, when it comes to different things, when it comes to the death penalty and other stuff of really, especially when we say things like life is sacred, it's like where do we draw those lines? Where do we truly justify the different things from the Bible? I do think there are things that a lot of those things that are justified by the Bible, but it's a lot better if we have the right spirit and we have the right, okay, it's wrong to kill somebody. There may be good reasons why we have to, because this person keeps trying to kill other people or like whatever, but we still should be affected by that. I mean, and especially as Christians, oh my gosh, this is probably one of the things that really, really has concerned me. And I've seen a lot of people, in my opinion, falling away from Christ and falling away from the church. And some of the big things are that they have said to me, and this has kind of been a repeated theme of these people who've kind of fallen away, is they just refuse to love their enemies and they refuse to pray for them. And it's like that's a commandment. It's like you don't get to choose that. And like right there you're saying, okay, I don't believe in the Bible, or that like I don't want to follow him, because like that's not a choice. And when all we can do is just have these emotions and just, oh, I hate this person, I hate Trump, I hate Biden, I hate, and then I mean, it's bad enough that we hate them, but then the fact that we won't pray for them, it's like man, we are so far from the heart of God. It is not even funny. And we need to, that's the I will say that, and that's one of the things with kind of like slaying. Me personally, even though you guys know, like I joke around a lot.
I've seen that recently.
Yeah, but honestly, with a lot of the stories that I personally really like, is I like stories that really punch me in the gut. I like stories that really make me think and make me question things, whether it's Christian or not. Like I just like, it's like, slap me awake. Okay, how do I feel about this? And and especially when you have that hate and when you're not willing to do things and you're not willing to love people, it's like man, it's like that's so that's kind of part of what that story is about. Cool. Though is kind of like a gut punch.
Yeah. Sounds like there's some real kind of heavy moral stuff in there, which is really cool. So the giveaway for that is live on the event page. So yeah, just make a comment, and again that'll be open for about 24 hours. So it wasn't in my notes, but one thing that is probably worth at least a brief mention, because it's something that you have in common with our next guest that I'm about to add in, is of course Supersonic Pod Comics, which was kind of my entry point to discovering you, basically. That's something that I've really enjoyed. If you want to just really briefly mention what that is, as I kind of click the button to bring Ben in.
Well, basically it was all my idea, and Ben just kind of tagged on my coattails. Just joking, Ben.
That's how I live my life. It's just what's JS gonna do? and I'm going to follow it. That's how I'm going to.
Well, we were talking about a lot. Ben and I both have together and separately had ideas for creating our own shared universe, especially ones that might have more of a not just a superhero thing, but also kind of a sci-fi edge to it. Since both he and I really like that too, and that's some of our favorite superhero stuff is kind of based on those things. And we grew up as like old Marvel fans, where everything was like scientific for their powers and all that stuff. So and also just doing those things kind of helps it be a little bit more believable for the audience. And it's easier to kind of have that through line through a lot of our stuff. Needless to say, we kind of branched out with a few. I probably branched out a lot more than he did, as in getting off track. but yeah, it's basically the idea of like our own like MCU. But it was, but we also both really like podcasts. We both really like audio dramas, and we both also really liked the old stuff, the old radio shows. And we liked the old, and Ben's brought it up a couple times. Like, so actually some of the earliest, there's some really early records that they did on Marvel Comics and some other of the old ones when they actually had like audio version. Yeah, the power records and stuff like that. And we were just, and I had come up with an idea that I thought would work as a good kind of behind the scenes thing to kind of pull some things together. And then we just started spitballing the other stuff and seeing what we could do and to get it together. But it's basically one of the things too, and I know it's probably, I think somewhat on Ben's heart as well as mine, but there's a lot of comic fans, especially adults that have children that cannot afford to keep up a comic habit. And buy them or buy very many on a regular basis. And then even with the movies and TV shows, they at that time they weren't coming out quite as often. So they're so expensive to make and everything else too. And we're like, well, we know we could do like an audio thing, and we'll just do whatever. But it definitely it definitely grew into something a lot bigger, because in our first episodes, it was basically just Ben, myself, and Nathan James Norman mostly doing the main character voices, because we hadn't gotten any voice actors or anything yet. And now I think we've like had over like 50 appear on all this stuff. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot, but yeah, but it's fun. I think the idea was an audio version of comics. Ben has said, comics for your ears, and it's basically because we kind of and I do
or your mind
or your mind. yeah,
comics for your mind.
Yeah, so we do a little bit of kind of slight, not in a, I would say not necessarily in a corny way, but we do a little bit of the heightened, explosions and heightened, punches and different things. And, but I think honestly, like, I really love it because there are things, and Ben has said this too, there's things that both he and I have wanted to do, or that we had ideas for, and we didn't, and we hadn't really had a chance to bring them in, and whether there were characters or power ideas or different things. And one of my favorite ones, and I've told Ben this, and I really could slap him silly for not turning it into a comic. I love his House of Heroes thing, which is just, and with our Supersonic Pod comics, it's only been reading it mostly. We had a radio version, and I added a little bit more music and sound effects, but yeah. But that's
you have to hire an artist is the thing.
Yeah,
that's the rub, as they say. And so,
yep,
that's what's kept me back.
That's not cheap, because what they do is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. All right, I'm going to read Ben's bio. So Ben is a storyteller. He tells stories in any medium that will work for the story at hand: comic books, puppets, stage plays, novellas, popsicle sticks with googly eyes, anything. He's the co-creator of Armor Quest and Time Flies, and his comics have been published by Marvel Comics, Image Comics, Zondervan, and a number of small press publishers. He's worked as a teacher, a theatre director, a youth treatment specialist, a youth pastor, a children's minister, and a janitor, among other things. and he has learned a lot through each of them, especially the janitor job. He lives in Indiana with his wife and 5 kids. He is one of the 3 hosts of the Strangers and Aliens podcast, and he also runs the Strangers and Aliens YouTube channel. So, yeah, again, lots of stuff that you're doing.
Lots of stuff that I've done.
Yes.
The doing right now is a little bit harder to do lots, but
yes. Yeah. So, what are some of your favorite? I mean, I can guess from the picture on the video, but yeah, what are some of your favorite sci-fi and fantasy fandoms?
I mean, yeah, Star Wars, Star Trek, Mystery Science Theater. I mean, there's a lot out there, and I like a lot of stuff. I mean, you can almost, if you name a fandom, I'm probably part of that, except for like anime. There's not a lot of anime fandoms that I'm a part of. Big fan of Battle of the Planets, Gatchaman, and Robotech, but not so much the newer stuff. I never watched Avatar: The Last Airbender. I never watched. Well, I did watch a little bit of Attack on Titan, but I mean, there's not a lot of the anime side of things. So if you bring those up, I'm not going to have not going to know the language as well for that. But yeah, Babylon 5. I mean, and then the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's another podcast that I do. Welcome to Level 7 is about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So yeah, there's just there's a lot.
Yeah, all the good stuff.
Yeah. I'm just a fan of good story, is what it comes down to. And if it engages me as a story, I'm a fan of it.
So you're working on a science fiction novel at the moment, planned to come out later this year, which is called Ghosts of the Future. Can you tell us a little bit about what we might be able to expect from that when that
that cover is so awesome, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
yeah. You could expect an awesome cover. Let me put it that way. I mean, you're just gonna, that cover is gonna just sit on your shelf and look beautiful. But beyond the cover, that's a book that I wrote because I hit a point in my life, really with Supersonic Pod Comics being the first kind of step into this, where I didn't have any freelance jobs to work on. Some of my other work had, especially comic book work, had dried up, and it was a matter of I want to tell some stories that are just mine. A lot of my projects that I worked on with comic books tended to be people coming to me, and they'd say things like, well, hey, you did The Hedge Knight with George R.R. Martin, and you're a Christian, so would you want to do the same thing with the Bible and adapt the Bible? And so got some jobs that way. And then the jobs that I got with Zondervan turned into jobs with Kingstone, which was one of my best, most productive seasons of my career as a writer, working on Bible stories and turning the book of Job into a comic book and taking a chronology of the 4 Gospels and doing the life of Christ in order in 12 issues. I call it my Watchmen because it was in 12 issues as a maxi series, but it's every single event from the Gospels. I might have missed one because when I was going through my notes one time when I was working on issue 12, I found a note card that I don't remember using. And so I don't remember what scene it is. So if anyone finds it, you can let me know and I'll write it for you for free. But then after that season, I kind of hit a period where I'm like, well, it was almost a moment of creative crisis of identity where I didn't know what I was anymore because I wasn't writing comics. And if I'm not writing comics, am I a comic book writer? And that's where Supersonic Pod Comics was one thing where it was just JS and I saying, what stories would we want to tell? What do we want to do? And so it's just kind of, I have freedom here, And then the novel was another one where it was just stepping out and saying, okay, I have complete freedom. And it started out as a November writing, NaNoWriMo, whatever it's called. But where you write so many words in 1 month in November. And that's how I started the novel. I worked on it every day for a little bit, sometimes just a few hundred words, sometimes just a few dozen, sometimes a few thousand. But, and then that turned into the novel Ghosts of the Future, which is the science fiction novel that I'd wanted to write for years, really. And it's a couple different ideas that kind of got mixed together. One was a crew that I had an idea of this crew of working class people, but It's not like, well, I guess it is kind of a Firefly, but they're nice, maybe, or maybe even looking at like the original Alien. But just having a group of normal people, and this is their job, is to take things from point A to point B. But then they get into a little bit of trouble here and there, and this one is they decide there's this weird anomaly, and the captain of the ship likes science stuff and wants to see it, and so they stop off their route, which they shouldn't do because they're on a time schedule. But the main character, he can keep on schedule. It'll be okay. And then there's the anomaly turns out to have effects on time in the area, and I don't want to give too much away, but there's time anomaly stuff involved. There's paradoxes. There's it's not a black hole because it's not scientifically accurate, so I called it a maelstrom or a gray hole. And yeah, they have their adventure there, and so it hits everything for me. It's sci-fi, there's a ship, and there's time travel. And so time travel is one of the big things for me. I love time travel stories. My first published comic book was a time travel story. My big project that I did for Zondervan, that was mine and mine alone, was a time travel story. And I guess my first novel is also a time travel story.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it sounds really, really intriguing and cool, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading that when it comes out. So
I'm looking at March is my release date is the hope. Cool. Depends on what happens with my beta readers and with my website, being able to launch it with my website and be able to give people access to it.
So. Definitely going to check that out.
Awesome. So as you've talked about how you've worked on a wide range of comics and graphic novels, you co-created Armor Quest and Time Flies. I'm guessing that ties into what you just said about your first comic being time travel. Tell us a little bit about those series.
Yeah, so Time Flies is, when I say co-created, almost anything that I create and have the initial idea for, if it's comic book, it's not my creation because there's an artist who brings it to life and brings the world to life. And with both of those, the artists that I worked with brought it to life in a way that, I might have had the initial germ of the idea. For Time Flies, it literally is a group of time traveling flies, and they go through time, and there's a little girl with them as well. There's a preteen girl who goes along with them. They accidentally kidnap her, and then she's like, oh, I need to stick with you on this adventure because there's a time traveling spider that's going around kidnapping famous scientists in history. And it turns out one of the scientists that the spider kidnaps is actually her father. And then she finds out later on that her mother was also one of those who were kidnapped. And so and one of the things for her is just she's a pretty average person in a really amazing family. And so she doesn't feel like she really has much to offer, but these flies are like, no, you do. You're a part of our group now. And so the structure of the team is based on Battle of the Planets and Gatchaman. But then there's all sorts of inspiration from lots of different time travel things. But mostly it's a pretty straightforward adventure. I call it Saturday morning time travel, where it's just, we're going to go to a place and be in this other time and have an adventure here. And then we're going to go to the next place and have an adventure there. And it has its own rules, but I wouldn't call it super scientific or anything like that. But it does follow its own rules as far as that goes. And so then that's the whole thing. 8 books from Zondervan. And so that was a great project to work on, and I was able to take it to from initial idea. I loved it because it was 8 books, but there were 8 books. But so I had the beginning and end, but then I also got to do episodes in the middle, and got to kind of expand it by saying, okay, they're going to stop here, they're going to stop here, they're going to stop here. It wasn't just here's the problem, here's the solution that's presented, here's them trying out the solution. But as they were going along the way, they got to stop in Berlin during World War II and meet Lisa Meitner, and they got to meet Benjamin Banneker, the Revolutionary War period, and they got to meet I can't remember the Egyptian scientist's name. I think it was Imhotep. Maybe it was. Maybe he's unnamed. I don't remember. No, because he's the first named scientist in all history. I just can't remember his name, but they go back in time and they see him, and so it was just a lot of fun. Armor Quest was another project, all ages graphic novel project, but it's based on basically taking Ephesians 6 and setting it in a Star Warsy, Lord of the Ringsy kind of world called Cerulia, and so it's this, it just has, that's the adventure of a guy getting the call to adventure, going out to fight the dragons, and gathering up pieces of armor as he goes along the way. So
Cool.
yeah, and that was Sherwin Schwarzrock, who is one of the most amazing artists that I've ever seen, let alone worked with. I was very blessed to work with him on that.
So you've also done something called Oz Wonderland Chronicles, which is obviously kind of drawing from the Wizard of Oz kind of thing. Was that like a license thing, or those books kind of gone into public domain? How did that
They're
come
public
about?
domain. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they are public domain. And that was another one where someone, it was actually my local comic shop owner. I came in one day and he was familiar with my work on the Hedge Knight. And he said, "Hey, you want to go down the way?" This was when they were in a mall at one point. They moved around a couple different times. The mall doesn't exist anymore. It was like, "Let's go to Hacienda and let's talk about something." I was like, "Sure." And so he said, "I want to do a project about the Wizard of Oz, and here's my idea." And I said, "Well, I wanted to do a project about Alice in Wonderland, but I think these might fit together." And so it is Alice and Dorothy dealing with a huge problem in the world, in our world. And that was one where I got to play a lot with just ideas of the fantasies where people from our world go to other worlds. And as I was looking at different themes in the different books, there's other people who make appearances. There's a Wendy who's also they're roommates, but it's the universe bringing them together. So it's Wendy, it's Alice, it's Dorothy. Those are the two that are main characters. There's a Sue Ellen, because I didn't want to call her Susan because Narnia is not public domain. So Sue. Sue Ellen, not Susan. So you have the roommates, but as I was kind of looking at these different worlds and the different people who go into the worlds, especially Dorothy and Alice, it was kind of pulling the themes of what is it about those worlds where it's a perfect fit for the person who's going there. So like Alice, who's coming from this world of structure and this world of expectations, and she goes to a world of madness where there are no rules except for these kind of just very loose rules based on wordplay and strangeness. And so you have the world. Was it what she needed, or was she what that world needed? And then you have Oz, which when Dorothy goes to Oz, she makes friends in every book. Like, she just goes to Oz and makes some new friends. But then you look at her world in Kansas, where she's kind of on her own. She lives with Uncle Henry and Aunt Em. And so the idea kind of was, that I was working with, was these worlds call them because they need the world, and so then it's now present day. Those their childhood experiences were kind of forgotten, but things are showing up to say these were real, these were not dreams. And they actually step into those worlds and are figuring out there's a new witch, and so the witch in Oz is summoning the Jabberwock from Wonderland, and it has to cross over through our world to get from one place to the other, and that's bad news.
Yeah. So. Cool. Yeah, I was kind of talking a bit earlier with JS about like with Dracula, that with public domain stuff that's out there, you can have some really creative kind of ideas when you can draw on something of the past and then add something to it.
Yeah, and that's why the public domain is so important. Is just because you have these cultural things, and some things matter and some things don't when you're looking at the public domain. There's certain things that are in the public domain that no one cares, but you have these other things that are foundational as far as pop culture goes, especially, but Dracula, Frankenstein, Alice in Wonderland, Dorothy, all these things. And really they've kind of perverted and subverted the public domain with Disney, basically. And Sonny Bono, who got pulled into it. And but they've subverted it somewhat to where it's not able to do what it was meant to do, which is to allow the public to engage with the ideas in a way that now we have to wait 100 years or more on some of these things to be able to play with these things, other than to do a pastiche or a real copy of it, which that's still a viable option. You can do, Wonderful Man or whatever, and big W on his chest, and are you making a comment on Wonder Woman or Superman? Well, however you write it, yeah, one way or another, you're making a comment on that thing. But so you can do satire and you can do the pastiche, but it's the public domain is really important, and because story is important to our culture and to all cultures, really.
I suppose when you think about it, like, through like the verbal traditions and stuff, people have been telling and retelling stories all throughout history, haven't they?
Yeah.
Did you kind of feel like a sense of responsibility kind of playing in someone else's backyard to kind of think about, I guess, what they would think of it, or were you kind of more detached from that?
No, all the time I do. I really do feel that way.
Yeah.
More so than I need to in some cases. I mean, Alice in Wonderland and Dorothy, I wanted to be true to the themes and to the characters, but we did move it to the present day. But that was really, Oz Wonderland Chronicles is more commentary on those things than it is adaptation of those things. And so it's using the actual characters, but allowing to have a commentary on fantasy and on escapism and on those worlds. When I did George Martin's The Hedge Knight, that was all about, and the reason I got the job was because my script sample was the truest to the original text, and so George selected me for that. And but that was because for that project it was okay, this is George Martin's The Hedge Knight, his is the name over the title, mine is the one under the title, and so I am not presenting Ben Avery's version of The Hedge Knight. So it's not like what is it, Francis Ford Coppola doing Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's not Bram Stoker's Dracula, that's Coppola's Dracula. But this was me saying it's George Martin's Hedge Knight. And the same with when I do Bible stories. I'm very, very careful. I do a lot of research. It's not perfect. There's someone who called me out on a detail in the Christ comic that I did, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's published, it's out there. But as a historical detail, I got it wrong. And so, and again, I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want you looking at it, but because this is the kind of thing you could easily gloss over. But yeah. And so I want to be very careful about those things when I'm working on someone else's project or someone else's characters.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the difference between an adaptation and a retelling, because they are two different things, aren't they?
Yeah. Because then you have Lullaby, which you can't really get it anywhere. I don't even know where, if it exists anywhere, and the rights exist with the original artist on that book. But that was a retelling of fairy tales, and that was just like, hey, we got cool ideas we can grab from all these fairy tales. And one detail I remember putting in was just the three pigs discovered triangles and realized they could support things better with triangles, and so they still built with sticks but used triangles this time, and it stood up a little bit better. But again, it's just taking these things and that's being a lot more playful with it and retelling instead of doing a straight adaptation. So
cool. Oh, it's almost time to bring in our final guest to join the party.
But do I get 10 minutes of his time the way JS got 10 minutes of my time?
Sure. Yeah, no, as we're doing that, is there anything you've been reading lately or watching that you've really enjoyed?
Yeah, I've been reading actually a lot of independent Christian sci-fi books for the YouTube channel, because that's one of the things on there is I want to just allow people to find people who are writing Christian sci-fi or sci-fi from a Christian worldview at the very least, because that's I think mine is similar to yours in intent, as far as my book is intended more for general audience, but definitely has a Christian worldview behind it. But I want to help people find it. And I know that there's the stigma that Christians have against their own people. You know, like if a Christian wrote it, it's not going to be good. And so I'm looking for the stuff that's good. And so I've been reading a lot of that stuff. And yeah, and I've also read some books from when I was like in high school. I just finished reading Stephen Lawhead's first book in the Albion trilogy, which, oh my word, I forgot how good it was. I forgot how good it was. So good. And rereading it just recently, it was so good. I've been watching Willow and hating it. I have been hate watching, which I preach against. Don't do this. But I've hated it so much every episode. Like, why don't I stop? Because I started. And now I'm complaining about it to everyone that I talk to. So
I didn't even start watching.
I rewatched the movie, and that was part of my problem. I rewatched the movie and was really surprised how good it was and how much better it was seeing it than it was in my memory of seeing it. And so that got me really excited for the series. And I sat down to watch the first episode. And every episode, my head just kind of went more and more down. Until the season finale, where it was just kind of, I'm here. Okay, whatever. I'll watch it. But Andor, man, you want to talk about something good? Andor.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And I can't wait to rewatch that when season 2 comes because this was so good. So
Andor really surprised me because I'd seen Rogue One and I'm like, okay, so they're going to take the guy from Rogue One, like I didn't even remember his name, and they're going to do a show about him. And I thought, yeah, okay, I suppose. So I didn't really know what to expect, but it really made me love that character, just seeing that show. And what I liked about it was how it delves into stuff like the rebellion and the Empire, which are done in such a cartoonish kind of way in the original trilogy, but they show I guess a little bit of the darker side of rebellion in that show, and and at the same time they almost make you feel kind of sympathetic for some of the people in the Empire, particularly like there's a policeman who spends most of the show like pursuing Andor basically because of a murder, and this guy is on the bad guy's side of the fence, but he's just a lawman trying to do his job. So I thought that was really fascinating.
I think it's interesting that it brings up some of the culpability that we all have for what our culture does. And like we are in our culture, honestly, in some ways, maybe the spiritual weak connection here is just this idea of we're in the world, but not of it, And so you have this guy who's doing stuff for the Empire. I don't know where he's going to end up. And he toward the end, it's not looking good, but where he seemed to be, at least at the first, starting out with noble intentions. And there's that. And then he also just wants to get out of the house because his mom, he spent so much time with his mom. And I'm just thinking, man, if this was a movie, we'd have never seen her, heard of her. But we actually spent like 10 or 15 minutes with her over the course of those episodes. It's like, oh my word, this is hilarious. So
yes, it wasn't a fast-paced show.
No. Which is part of the charm, but also I have some friends who that's a legitimate reason why they didn't enjoy the show, was it was just taking too long. So
So you're going to say something about that, Heather?
Oh, I was just going to say I'm really glad to hear a good review, because my husband and I had been thinking about, should we watch Andor? Should we not? Because some of them have actually been good, and some of them not so much, and it's busy parents, busy writer, what are you going to do? So we really rely on the reviews. So I'm really glad to hear a good review of Andor.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I might press the button and bring Winston in just so we can all party together. So let's see what happens there. There he is.
Holy smokes. Oh, goodness. Everything changes.
Yep.
Hello, I am glad to be in such august company, and I don't really know how to follow these fantastic talks. You guys are staggering. Do I have audio?
Yeah. Well, you've. Sorry. I was just trying to open up my file of things to talk to you about. So.
Ah.
But yeah, no, you've got some great stuff to share about as well, Winston. So
Swap some things around over here.
yeah,
Everybody else, oh my gosh, everybody comes on and they've got all these great visuals of their work behind them, and I'm like, what do I display? I don't have anything to display. Everything's digital. Everything I've got's digital.
yeah, I'm a bit like that. I actually don't have my own physical copies of Jewel of the Stars yet. Just because it took a while to actually publish the paper version. I was focusing on the ebook at the beginning, but yeah, my mum actually got copies of it fairly early on, so I was up there visiting, and just to be able to hold the book in my hand and look at it and think, wow, this is like a paper version of my stuff. Like, yeah, that was kind of cool.
Some stuff back there. I don't know if that helps or not, but anyway, makes me feel better.
You can hold it up. You can hold it up to the screen if you need to.
Yeah,
Or
do
to the
that.
camera.
I do have a little image I'll share in a minute anyway. But yeah, Peter Lowbridge just said, been waiting for the new Jewel of the Stars for ages. Can't wait to get it. Thanks, Peter. I haven't been a good author. It's taken me way too long to put out 30,000 word novellas. And a lot of that has been financial, but yeah, I think we're heading in the right direction. And yeah, as I said earlier in the stream, I am planning to get book 4 out before the end of this year, which would mean there would actually have been 2 published this year.
That's
Which
so impressive.
yeah, I mean,
hey, you know what? If George Martin can make people wait, you can too.
Yeah.
Yes. All
Although
right.
I've heard some pretty interesting reader comments about that, so I don't think I want to make them wait that long.
Yeah, him and the other one I've heard is Patrick Rothfuss. That some people are saying, is he going to finish his series or not? But I mean, those guys write big books,
Right.
a lot bigger than what I write. But all right, so let's I'll just read out your bio.
Oh goodness.
Have some water first, because I think I've talked more in the last couple of hours than I have in the last month. So Winston is an accountant by day, a long distance runner also by day, so he can see where he's going, and your average fanboy by night. He loves to write and had a brief career professionally writing and editing all sorts of materials, including news reports, advertising copy, technical manuals, human interest articles, short stories, and novels. After getting involved in publication design, he discovered a real love for the production process of printed material and believes that a satisfying book is as pleasant to view as it is to read. So yeah, but before we jump into Starman, just a little bit about some of your favorite sci-fi and fantasy fandoms.
Oh goodness. Well, I think I've spent more time with Star Wars than anything else. I mean, R2-D2's my hero. Yeah. But I mean, I feel like anything I say would be an echo of what has come before. If it's come across the nerd culture radar, I have probably at least investigated it. There's there's some exceptions. I cracked about George Martin earlier, but I'm not huge into Game of Thrones. Although I really loved his Wild Cards stories. I thought those were fantastic. But goodness, I can definitely say I've spent more time with Star Wars than anything else. But I have an avid love for all things sci-fi and fantasy. And if my book talks on Monday night run the gamut of all kinds of stuff. And probably surprising. You know what? I can add one twist that I haven't heard. I am a fan of inspirational romantic suspense, like love-inspired suspense books that Harlequin puts out. I really enjoy those, and that's some of them are better than others. I have my favorite authors, of course. Dana Mentink is just a fantastic author. But I think what really drew me to them at first was the editing staff. because the editors at Harlequin are just top notch, and it shows in the books, in the way the books are put together, in the way the books are designed, and in the way they read. And that's at least partially because their job is to churn out a more uniform product across a larger variety of contributors. So you're going to have some heavier editorial oversight. But yeah, so there's my twist. I mean, other the rest of it, you can see my bookshelf. I've got Terry Brooks and Hubbard and Indiana Jones and the D&D books in here, Forgotten Realms, Mac Bolan, and my dog is wanting to get on the show too, but she can't quite get into the camera.
Right.
So yeah, fandoms. I'm in a lot of them. Not real heavy into any one in particular, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I
kind of average.
I guess when it comes to like with DC Comics, which I've been getting into a bit over the last 6 months, our mutual friend Peter and I kind of, I guess, think of you as if you've got a question about DC, you ask Winston, because he probably knows the answer. So.
He has done that a couple of times, made that comment a couple of times, where he should try to call me live on to answer a question. But you know what? That's let me qualify that. I was as big a DC fanboy as anybody during the 80s and 90s and most of the 2000s. And in 2009, I fell away from comic book fandom entirely. And they just, like Jay said, they just stopped telling the stories that I wanted to read. And it, rather than continue to pour money into that, I mean, I have the good thing about being average in all things, not particularly heavily invested in anything, is that when I need to walk away from something because it no longer speaks to me, I can walk away from it because it no longer speaks to me. And there's something else to fill that niche. I did come back to comic because when I walked away in 2009, I walked away from DC and Marvel and everything. And in 2013 or 14, I forget exactly when, Humble Bundle did a big bundle of Sonic the Hedgehog comics. I'm thinking, all right, Sonic the Hedgehog. I remember reading those in the 90s, and it was by Archie. They were kids' books. It was gags, 8-page gags, this kind of stuff, right? And I'm like, but my son's the right age. Maybe he'll read something with words on it. If it's Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
So I got the Sonic books, and I'm like, all right, well, what has Sonic been up to? And I started reading them. And the author is Ian Flynn. And what I discovered was some of the best superhero storytelling I have seen anywhere. Wow. And I have stuck with Sonic the Hedgehog ever since. And he's branched out. He's not the only Sonic writer anymore. But his stuff for Archie and now for IDW has just been, top-notch superhero storytelling. That's where I go to now for my superhero stuff. So if you want, rabbit trailing off of DC, ask me anything as long as it's pre-2009.
Yeah. Well, I'm reading in the 90s anyway, the Death of Superman and all that kind of stuff. So
that's good stuff. The Death of Superman, and they followed that with they just started started telling these mythic style stories with their main characters. It was a really interesting time at DC because the Death of Superman, of course, famously started out as a joke. They were brainstorming, and somebody said, "Why don't we kill him?" And they said, "Okay, let's kill him." And they did that, but the response to that was so unexpected and overwhelming that the editorial staff said, okay, well, what can we do with our other characters to make them new, to make them relevant, to get this kind of pop? So let's just destroy them. And that's what they started doing. You know, they broke Batman's back. They drove Hal Jordan and Green Lantern insane. They disintegrated Wally West, the Flash. They erased Wonder Woman and recreated her. I'd like to say somebody at DC had a master plan for this, but I really don't think they did. I really think it was just providence that they got the creators that they did at the time that they did, telling the stories that they did, to recreate the overarching mythology that you see in Greco-Roman myths. And you can apply that almost directly, one for one, to the DC superhero books, starting at 93, 94, and going on into 2005 or so, when Grant Morrison kind of capped everything off with his run on JLA, aided, of course, by Mark Waid and one of the other. There was another writer in there that it was. But yeah, I mean, if that's the era you're reading, you're reading a really special time. Don't neglect, by the way, to chase the Judgment Day storyline that they did throughout the Justice League books just before the 0 Hour event, because that's where they took all the C-listers, and every one of them got a moment to shine. Well, not every one of them, but a lot of them got their moment to shine, including Booster Gold, and one of my favorite moments in comics, where Booster he says, "I've come back from the future." I mean, that's a story. He's come back from the future with this future tech and stuff, and he's like, "And I've been playing the fool, and I've been this goofy guy, and everybody, yuck it up." And he's like, "I've been waiting for this moment." They're like, "Why?" He's like, "Well, this moment is recorded in history as the moment, that everything collapses." And, he shows them this article, and he says, like, "You see this photo of the event, that person right there leading the charge, that's me. When I saw that, I knew I had to get back here and do whatever it was to make whatever I had to do to make it to this point." And it was just really good stuff. Dan Jurgens was one of the headliners on those books at the time, and just really, really good stuff.
Cool.
Don't start me on comic books in DC.
Sorry. All right. Well, let's talk about Starman. So,
that's why I'm here, right?
Yeah. So you were.
That's so much better than anything I could come up with. Thank you.
Yeah. So you are the current publisher of the Starman books. So
yes.
Tell us about what they are and how you got involved in them.
So, what they are, Starman is science fiction storytelling in the style of 1960s adventure fiction. Michael D. Cooper is a pseudonym for three guys, David Bowman, John Cooper, and Mike Dodd, who got together through a Tom Swift fan board and started doing fan fiction for a really obscure science fiction series. Oh gosh, you put me on the spot, and I know all of this stuff by heart. now it's anyway, but they started doing fan fiction, and then they couldn't get said, "Hey, this is good stuff. Let's do. We're having fun plotting this kind of stuff out. Can we get the rights to do another book in the series?" Well, they couldn't get the rights. Said, "Okay, well, let's start doing our own books." So they did, and they envisioned a future where it is. They came up with the tagline, "The future, the way it's meant to be, or the way it used to be," where It is optimistic. The good guys are good guys. They're not beset by moral ambiguity or anything. They're not perfect. They fail because they're flawed, because they're weak, but they're not morally. They're not morally flawed. They're physically flawed. They're not strong enough to do something. They're not educated enough to do something. But when it comes down to, can we, do we make the right choice? They always make the right choice because they are morally right people. And the first 3 books just kind of starts opening up the world. The Starmen are a group of elite astronauts sponsored by Starlight Enterprise. To be a Starman means to get a commission similar to the Lensman or the space adventurers. Dig Allen, that was the that was the series by Joseph Green, the same creator who did Tom Corbett and the Space Cadets. The Starmen have a similar commission to the Space Cadets. Go, explore, find new things, and make the universe a better place. Here is unlimited resources. Do what needs to be done. And the story opens with the commissioning of our 3 main characters. David Foster is the main. He's the guy. He's the main guy. And he and his buddies, Joe Taylor and Mark Seaton, get commissioned as starmen on their graduating day. They're 17 years old, and they're given their first assignments. Well, in the middle of David's first assignment, he's sent to Mars to do some scientific experiments because they're young, they're new starmen. Old senior starmen get to do whatever they see fit. The new guys, the boss gives them an assignment. Pirates attack Mars. So David Foster is trapped on Mars. He's got an invasion force that has descended upon the planet. They've shut down all communications. They've blockaded everything. Space Command can't get here. David Foster is on his own, and there is a world of pirates against him. The pirates don't stand a chance. And that's the one Starman. David Foster is fully expected to be able to handle things on his own. But just to be sure, and to clear the way, because they have no communication, so they don't actually know if David's still alive, Richard Starlight, the guy, the head of Starlight Enterprises, the man who commissions the Starmen, sends his friend, sends David's buddies, Mark and Joe, to go help him out. And with 3 starmen against an army of pirates, it's a foregone conclusion. They run the pirates off Mars, and in the next books, they chase them through the asteroid field and out to the farthest planet in the solar system, beyond the edge of Pluto, where we find out who the real enemy of mankind is.
Wow.
And that's where the series really takes off. I love these books. You ask how I came, how I discovered them. In 2007, I was working all the time. Nothing's changed. But my habit was to load up an audiobook onto my iPod and go to the gym whenever I could, because you don't get a lot of activity when this is your job, right?
Yep.
And so a lot of my stuff comes from the library or from the Internet Archive or all kinds of places. I had something scrolled across my feed on the Internet Archive, something called Starman. Well, this looks interesting. What's this? A fan had recorded book 2, The Runaway Asteroid. Like, all right, load it up. I read it, or I listened to it, and there's a point in the book where the Starmen are in the asteroid belt, and they meet with an asteroid miner, George St. George. And he tells they've just been attacked by pirates in the asteroid belt. And he tells them, yeah, I don't like losing all my stuff and putting my men in danger, but I have learned that in whatever situation I am, I can be content. I've been hungry and I've been well fed. I've been rich and I've been poor. I've been taken care of and I've been in need. And I'm thinking, okay, I know this. This is Philippians. So I paid a little more attention to the story from that point on. And it just, every chord they hit struck another chord with me. So this is great stuff. I love this. Are there more? Yeah, well, there were more. So I went to the website. I'm like, oh, good, they're on Kindle. Click, 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 click. Boom, put them on the Kindle. And I promptly forgot about them. So last year, well, 2 years ago now, 2021, I remembered to read them. Because it was just the one that was the audiobook. Yeah. So I read these books. I'm like, oh yeah, these are really great. Hey, I need to write the authors and tell them that this is really great stuff. So I went looking for the website. The website's gone. Went looking for their email. Their email's gone. But it's the internet age. I tracked down one of them. I said, hey, these are great books. They're not. You can't find them anymore. What happened? He's like, well, we finished the series in 2005. Finished it up again, wrote a final sequel in 2011, and then in 2016 the fan base kind of dissolved, everything drifted away. We closed the chapter. It was a great time. We had a great time writing the books. We had a great time with the fan community, but it's time to close that chapter. Just a moment, I have to let my dog outside.
Yep. Dogs can be demanding.
This is real life, folks. This is the way it happens.
Yep.
I'll have to let her back in just a minute. So I said, okay, this is great. I want these books to be available. I want my friends to read them. I want my family to read them. Let me help you get the files updated. We'll get them up on Kindle, and that'll be great. And I said, yeah, we don't really want to mess with it. You do it. Like, what do you mean, me do it? Like a publisher do it? And he's like, yeah, whatever you want. And I said, okay. And that's kind of where we landed. And so, we went back and forth, and I was given the great privilege to work on the books a little bit more, do a final copy edit, take their 12 years worth of work, books that have been done at different points in time with slightly different visions at each time, and do a series revision so that everything hangs together a little more strongly, and commission some new covers and put the new covers out. And it's a really exciting thing for me. And all of this is possible. I would not have been in a position to even know how to do this if in 2008 my mother hadn't called me up and said, hey, I just did an interview with a veteran friend of ours. He wants his story told. Can you, I got it written down because my mother was an English professor. He says, I've got it all written down, but he wants a real book in his hands. Can you make a book out of this for him? I said, yeah, I can make a book. Sure. And so I learned how to make a book. And then, we did that. I put it up on Lulu so that Mom could get a copy, so that, her friend could get a copy of whatever. The year afterward, John Wilkerson, whom some of you know, I'm sure, contacted me and says, hey, you did that book last year. You want to do another one? I'm like, yeah, okay. And so, we did an anthology for a benefit that John was having at the time. And then we did another one after that, and another one after that. And it was, I discovered I really loved making books, if that sounds. So that kind of moved me into, all that stuff you mentioned, doing the technical manuals and all of that stuff which has kept me in the continuing education, as it were, so that when the time came that the guys who wrote the Starman books needed somebody to put them out again, I was in the right place at the right time, right education. And you know what? If that's not the definition of God's providence, I don't know what is.
That's exactly what it is.
So that's the long version of a short story. Short version being, how did I come to find Star? Well, I read them and I asked them, and here we are.
That was a great
Those are
story.
the 3 R's, though. Those are the 3 R's: right time, right place, ready.
Yeah. So yeah, the books are all finished. There's no, the only time frame we're dealing with is how fast I can get the ebooks and the new print on demand stuff ready, and then we're looking at pushing forward into the future. And as soon as we've got concrete stuff to talk about, I'll be calling you again, Adam.
Are you going to have the paperbacks on Amazon too?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to have the paperbacks on Amazon too?
Yes. The ebooks are my priority because I can get those out fastest. And the guys have requested that I prioritize hardcovers for the books because they really want the hardcovers too. But yeah, absolutely. The plan is to have the ebooks out first and the hardcovers as soon as possible. And then once all those are done so that the guys can have their collector's editions, I'll be making sure. That's what I mean, that was David Bowman's words exactly. He said, well, I want a collector's edition. I'm like, okay, David, it's your book. I'll do whatever you want, man. But yeah, I'll be putting out, making sure that the paperbacks are available as well. So,
and there's a few options for hardcovers nowadays. There weren't a couple of years ago for independent authors. So yeah.
The price. Oh, there's my second call. Just a moment.
Yeah, I've read the first 3 of those books and have certainly enjoyed them so far. And yeah, kind of like the ongoing story in the background that's slowly building up and up. That Winston mentioned, how in book 3 you kind of find who the real villain is, and yeah, there's some really interesting kind of sci-fi mystery stuff that's been built over those first 3 books.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
But yeah, so that's some of the things I had tried to display back here. Pathfinder was the one that my mom had asked me to do. This is Buck Hilton's story. Buck is he's an Indian. Of course, he's a Native American. So is you, Crutchfield. You was born here, weren't you? Yes, sir, Buck. Yes, I was. So he's an Indian.
Yeah.
And he talks about his experiences as a pathfinder in World War II, and he wanted to make sure that those got written down. And then this is the only other book that I have on hand. One of the anthologies that I helped put together.
Cool.
But anyway, neither here nor there. I don't even remember where we had moved on to by now.
Yeah. Well, I think we're nearly at the end of our stream here. I just wanted to quickly ask you about the your role-playing game, Opposing Forces.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not as up on role-playing as a lot of you others are, but yeah, can you explain a bit about what that means to us?
Now, that one I actually do have a copy of.
Hey, oh, yes?
It's not a good camera, but there we go. Anyway, so role-playing games are a huge hobby. Of course, D&D is the most famous, and I played my share of D&D, but there's all kinds of stuff out there. Every not fan fiction, but every fandom at one time has had its own RPG, so you can live your own adventures. But in 2000, 2012, Evil Hat Games put out something called the Fate System. And they put it out with the Creative Commons license so that anybody can use their stuff. And it took a really different approach to because D&D and all these other games, they really evolved from skirmish war games. And a lot of them retain that focus, which is great. I mean, lots of good versions of that out there. Fate took a little different approach. They went with a storytelling approach. And I thought they did a really good job. I said, hey, this is really great. It is optimized for telling a story. You know what it really needs? It really needs a skirmish version. so that's what I did. I took the rules that they had and I expanded them, put my own stuff on it as well, and did that, published that as Opposing Forces, which is a tactical manual, and set a gallery of opponents for Fate Core. And I had fun doing it, and it was a good time. And if you're interested in the Fate system at all, or role playing in general, it might be worth checking out. Worth checking out now at Drive Through RPG. Deal of the day today only. I'm sure Adam pulled some strings to make that happen. And that was the weirdest thing. I got the email yesterday, right after I was talking about this in the our chat. Right after you posted, I'm like, Adam must have pulled some strings. He called somebody who knows people. That's what happened.
Adam knows everyone.
So that's what that is. If if you're into role playing games, if you're into the Fate system, it might be interesting to you. If you're not, I don't really suggest it as a starting point.
Yeah.
But yet another fandom, yet another hobby.
Cool.
Like I said, average in all things, I suppose.
Yep. Right. Well, I want to really thank all four of you for giving so much of your time for this. I've really, really appreciated it. So, thank you for that. I'd like to remind everyone that the Duel of Stars books are available. Books to read, the number 2.com/Jewel. And then it's just Jewel 2. Yeah, just hold your hand out like that. And Jewel 3. So the URLs are all kind of the consistent
drops
there.
on
I'm about
Sunday or Monday,
75% through 2, and I can't wait for 3.
Yeah, cool. And also just to draw attention to the fact that there is a free prequel that you can get at adamdavidcollins.com/free. Definitely worth checking out. I'm quite proud of this little short story that does kind of set up the scene a little bit. Kind of tells the initial story of first contact between Earth and the aliens. So yeah, that's a free thing that you get from signing up to my newsletter. So be sure the giveaways are all posted on the Facebook event page. So a friend and fellow author Lynn Stringer actually mentioned in the chat earlier that there were some issues with visibility maybe of that page. So I will be making sure that's all sorted out. The giveaways are all going to be open for 24 hours, so there'll be plenty of time for anyone to make their entry. So be sure to check out Winston, Heather, JS, and Ben, and just look at all their stuff and enjoy some of their cool stories.
Thanks for inviting us. This was really great.
Did you just tell them to check us out?
I did indeed. But not in a creepy way.
He's married. It's okay.
I think all four of you are married, so yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think Winston might have lost it.
I'm sure my husband is watching.
Right. So I might just sign off by showing the trailer again, and then we'll call the stream. So yeah, thank you everyone, and appreciate your time both people presenting and people watching. So,
Adam, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for inviting me. I tell you what.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No worries. It was been a pleasure.
Checks out.
For hundreds of years, vacationers have been cruising on grand ships for adventure and relaxation. First on the oceans of Earth. Today, cruise ships take you into the depths of space. Come and journey with us on Earth United Cruise Line's latest ship, Jewel of the Stars. Eat dinner by the light of a nebula, or dance the night away in orbit of an alien planet. With Jewel of the Stars, the universe is at your fingertips.
Our planet has fallen to an alien invasion. Do not approach Earth!
All right, see you guys.